The stars above Earth's colonies burned bright and silent, but silence never meant peace. On that day the silence broke with fire. The alien fleets came not for soldiers, not for weapons, but for something far worse. They came for the healers. Across the galaxy, humanity had spread its doctors, nurses, and peace workers to different colonies. They carried no guns, only medicine, knowledge, and compassion. They were the symbol of humanity's softer side, the side that still believed in helping even enemies in need. Everyone thought they would be safe, protected by old agreements and unspoken rules of war. But those rules shattered in a single night. It began on the colony of Ashara Prime. The healer station floated above the planet like a beacon, its white hull glowing against the darkness. Inside, hundreds of human healers worked day and night, tending to soldiers from many species. They believed they were untouchable. But then the alarm screamed. A fleet of alien warships appeared out of the void, their weapons locked not on armies or military bases, but directly on the healer station. Without warning, they opened fire. Explosions ripped through the white halls. Shattered glass and twisted metal spun into the void. Doctors who had once saved thousands now floated lifeless among the debris. News spread faster than light. Within hours, colonies across the galaxy reported similar attacks. Healer convoys were ambushed, hospital ships destroyed, medical camps burned to ash. Thousands of unarmed men and women died, their only crime being human and carrying the Red Cross of mercy. The galaxy gasped, but it did not move. Some alien leaders looked away, pretending it was not their concern. Others laughed, whispering that humans had grown soft, too dependent on their healers. If Earth could not protect its gentle ones, then perhaps humanity was not as strong as it claimed. But Earth was not silent. On the homeworld, deep within old military vaults, leaders gathered in secret. The President of Earth sat at the head of the table, her face pale and cold. Around her were generals, scientists, and historians. None of them spoke at first, because they all knew what the next step would mean. One general finally broke the silence. "They struck our healers," he said, his voice hard as steel. "That is not war. That is slaughter." Another leaned forward, her eyes burning. "We cannot respond with words. The galaxy thinks we are weak. They must learn otherwise." The President's hands trembled. "If we answer with fire, we lose the image of who we are." The healers represented hope. Do we now destroy that hope by becoming monsters? The room fell quiet again. But then an old voice spoke from the corner. It belonged to a man with scars across his face, a soldier long retired. "Madam President," he said, "monsters are exactly what they fear, and monsters are what we still have." Those words shifted the air. Every leader knew what he meant. Locked away, buried in prisons hidden from the stars, were men and women once called heroes, then called criminals. They had fought in the earliest galactic wars. They had broken rules, committed acts so ruthless that even Earth could not allow them to walk free. They were too dangerous, too violent, too uncontrollable. The world had chosen peace over their shadows, but now those shadows were needed again. The decision was not made in speeches, but in silence. Each leader knew the truth. The galaxy had crossed a line, and Earth could never go back. Orders were signed. Keys were turned, and deep under the mountains of Earth, old prison doors began to open. Far away, on the colonies that survived, humans mourned. Families cried for their doctors and nurses. Soldiers felt helpless, watching their wounded die without help. And yet, in the middle of grief, rumors began. Some whispered that Earth was preparing something. Others claimed they saw strange black ships leaving the atmosphere at night. A few remembered the old stories of the darkest warriors, the humans who never stopped fighting even when the galaxy begged them to. On Ashara Prime, survivors floated in escape pods, staring at the wreckage of the healer station. Among them was a young medic named Lian. His hands were covered in the blood of those he could not save. He whispered into the cold void, his voice shaking but filled with rage. "If they wanted war, they will see war. If they wanted monsters, we will give them monsters." And in that moment, across the galaxy, a chill ran through every enemy commander who had once laughed at Earth's weakness. They had struck the healers. They had broken the one law no one dared touch. And though they did not yet know it, they had opened the cage to something far worse. The first blow had fallen. The galaxy believed Earth would bow its head in grief. Instead, Earth raised its head, eyes burning with vengeance. In the darkness of space, a fleet of black warships began to move. They carried no flags, no symbols of mercy, only silence and the promise of terror. The war criminals of humanity were awake again. The prisons that held them were not ordinary. They were built in silence, hidden in deep mountains, beneath oceans, and in abandoned colonies where no one dared to live. For decades, the galaxy had forgotten their names. But Earth had not forgotten. Earth had only chosen to bury them. When the first attack on the healers was confirmed, the locks began to break. Iron doors that had not moved in 50 years creaked open. Men and women stepped out, their eyes hard, their bodies scarred, their hearts unchanged. They were called war criminals, but to some, they were still legends. The first to be released was Commander Vera Kane. She had once led a human fleet in the first Galactic uprising. Her tactics were so brutal that entire planets surrendered without a fight, too afraid to resist. She had been sentenced to live in silence, her name erased from history. Now she walked again, her face calm, her voice sharp as a blade. "Who attacked the healers?" she asked. Her guards did not answer, but she already knew. "Then the galaxy remembers me now," she whispered. Another was Joran Hale, a soldier once called the Wolf. He had no fleet, no army, only himself and the weapons he built. In the war against the Crass Dominion, he had turned entire worlds into graveyards. He was said to have laughed as fire consumed cities. The galaxy demanded his execution, but Earth had locked him away instead, fearing that one day he might be needed again. When he walked out of his cell, his smile returned. "So they called me a monster," he said. "Good. Monsters are what they will face. There were others, snipers who never missed, captains who never surrendered, spies who had betrayed whole species for victory. They were shadows of Earth's darkest days. And now they were free. The galaxy began to feel their return before it saw them. Fleets that once mocked humanity started to vanish. A convoy of alien warships disappeared in the Cairo Nebula. No wreckage, no survivors, only silence left behind. A mining colony that had joined the attack on the healers suddenly found its atmosphere poisoned overnight. The enemy's leaders called it an accident, but whispers spread. Everyone knew it was not an accident. On Earth, ordinary citizens argued in fear. News broke that the old warriors were loose. Some cheered, demanding vengeance. Others wept, saying humanity had traded its soul for blood. The families of the dead healers held pictures of their loved ones, begging the government to let the war criminals fight. And fight they did. Commander Vera Kane led the first strike. She did not command with speeches. She stood on the bridge of her black warship and gave a single order. Erase them. The fleet obeyed. Entire alien outposts turned to dust. Survivors spoke of weapons that burned hotter than suns, of soldiers who moved like ghosts through corridors, killing with precision and silence. They said the humans left no bodies, only messages carved into the steel walls. For the healers, Joran Hale worked differently. He did not command fleets. He struck alone. Alien generals woke in their palaces to find their guards dead and their halls burning. He left no survivors, only a trail of fear. Some said he moved faster than ships, faster than light itself, a wolf tearing through the galaxy. The galaxy began to understand. Humanity was not soft. Humanity was not broken. Humanity had chosen to chain its monsters because the monsters were too powerful. But now the chains were gone. Alien councils gathered in panic. Leaders shouted at each other, blaming one another for provoking Earth. Some demanded peace talks, others called for unity against the humans. But even as they argued, their fleets disappeared one by one. The war criminals of Earth were already among them, and no one could stop them. In one council chamber, an alien minister slammed his claws on the table. "They cannot be human," he roared. No species fights like this. No species breaks all laws of war. But an older alien whispered back, "You do not understand humans. They have laws, yes. But when you break those laws, when you touch what they love, they stop being human." The minister stared at him. "Then what are they?" The old alien looked down. "They are the forgotten ones. Back on Earth, the president watched the reports come in. Cities burning, fleets shattered, fear spreading. She knew what she had unleashed, but there was no going back. She whispered to herself, 'The healers are gone. The galaxy will never forget this answer.' And in the shadows of space, the forgotten ones prepared their next strike. Not against soldiers, not against armies, but against the alien homeworld that had ordered the attacks. The galaxy had asked for war. Now it would learn the price of calling humanity weak. The forgotten ones were awake, and they would not stop. The first retaliation came without warning. In the cold silence of the Cairo Nebula, a convoy of alien warships moved slowly, their lights dimmed, their weapons relaxed. They believed they were safe. The healers were dead, and Earth was grieving. Humanity had no strength left to strike. But they were wrong. From the darkness, black ships emerged. They carried no banners, no names, only shadows. The forgotten ones were at the helm. Commander Vera Kane gave a single word, and the nebula turned into fire. The alien fleet did not even have time to send a distress call. Hours later, nothing remained but drifting metal and the ashes of pride. And carved into the largest piece of wreckage were words in human script, "For the healers." News spread like wildfire. Entire colonies woke to rumors that humanity's monsters were back. Families whispered about them at night. Soldiers of alien fleets refused to patrol. Some commanders even deserted, terrified of facing the legends they had heard as children. But the retaliation did not stop there. On the colony of Draven's Reach, an alien general held a feast, celebrating the destruction of a healer station. His hall was filled with laughter, banners, and music. But as the night grew long, the laughter turned to screams. The lights died one by one. Guards collapsed with throats cut. The general fled into his private chamber, only to find Joran Hale waiting, his shadow stretched across the wall. The wolf smiled. "This is for every hand that healed." The feast all burned, and by morning Draven's Reach was nothing but rubble. Across the galaxy, more strikes followed. Entire garrisons vanished, supply lines turned silent, outposts that had once mocked humanity sent desperate signals for reinforcements that never came. And everywhere the same mark appeared. For the healers, alien councils panicked. They gathered in grand halls, their voices echoing with fear. They had expected Earth to cry, not to fight. They had expected Earth to bow, not to burn. But the war criminals fought with a cruelty the galaxy had never seen. "These are not soldiers," one alien shouted in a council chamber. "These are demons." But an older voice replied, "No, these are humans without mercy." Back on Earth, the population watched with mixed hearts. Some cheered, saying justice had been delivered. Others whispered in fear, wondering if humanity had lost its soul. The president remained silent, her eyes heavy with the knowledge of what she had unleashed. In the colonies, survivors of the healer attacks felt something different. Relief. For the first time since the slaughter, they felt protected. Some prayed for the souls of the warriors, others prayed for their victims, but none denied that the galaxy now trembled. Commander Vera Kane stood before her fleet, her eyes like steel. "They thought we were finished. They thought they could strike the innocent and walk free, but we will remind them of the oldest human law. When you touch our healers, you touch death itself." Her words spread, carried by whispers, by intercepted signals, by terrified survivors. Across the galaxy, enemies realized the truth. They had made a mistake greater than any war before. Joran Hale, moving alone through the void, left another message carved into the ruins of a fleet base. "We are coming," No one knew where he would strike next. No one knew how to stop him. And worse, no one knew how many forgotten ones were still waiting to be released. The retaliation had begun, and the galaxy finally understood. Humanity was not just a race of healers, not just a race of dreamers. Humanity was also a race of monsters, and when those monsters were unleashed, there was no force in the stars strong enough to hold them back. The war criminals did not fight for glory. They did not fight for conquest. They fought for revenge. They fought for the healers who had died with empty hands, unable to defend themselves. And in their revenge, the galaxy shook. The stars burned with fire. The shadows whispered. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy knew fear, because humanity had answered. The galaxy had seen wars before. Empires had risen and fallen. Species had fought for territory, for power, for pride. But what humanity unleashed after the attack on its healers was something different. It was not war. It was punishment. And punishment carried a price. In the halls of the Galactic Council, panic grew. Leaders shouted across the chamber, claws and hands slamming on the long tables. Reports poured in, fleets missing, colonies in flames, generals assassinated. No one knew where the humans would strike next. No defense seemed strong enough to stop them. One alien ambassador stood trembling as he spoke. They are not fighting wars. They are writing warnings in blood. They are not seeking victory. They are seeking fear. Silence followed his words, because everyone knew it was true. Humanity had unleashed something the galaxy had sworn to bury. And now the shadows were loose. Back on Earth, the people divided. In crowded cities, holoscreens showed the destruction of alien fleets. Some cheered wildly, shouting that justice had finally come. They held pictures of the dead healers and whispered, "This is for you." But others lowered their heads, uneasy. Mothers asked if vengeance had gone too far. Children wondered if the monsters would ever turn against their own. The President of Earth sat in her office, sleepless. She watched the casualty numbers climb, not for humans but for aliens. Entire colonies were gone, hospitals destroyed, families erased. She whispered to herself, "Have we protected our healers, or have we created new killers?" In the colonies, survivors of the healer attacks felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Some were glad to see alien fleets burn, calling it justice for their murdered doctors and nurses, but others felt horror. They had seen the Forgotten Ones fight, and it did not feel like justice. It felt like something darker, something that did not belong in the light. Commander Vera Kane knew this truth. She stood on her ship's bridge watching the stars. Her fleet had erased another alien outpost, leaving behind silence and smoke. Her officers looked to her for words, but she gave none. She did not smile, did not celebrate. Deep inside, even she wondered if vengeance had gone too far. But Joran Hale, the wolf, felt no doubt. Alone, he stalked alien generals, tearing through their defenses like shadows through fog. To him, this was simple. The healers had been struck, and now every enemy would pay. He felt no guilt, only hunger. And the galaxy felt his hunger too. Among humanity's allies, fear grew. Species that once fought beside humans began to pull away. "If they unleash such monsters for healers," one ally whispered, "what will they unleash for war?" Some allies cut ties. Others begged Earth to stop before the galaxy turned against them. But Earth did not stop. The retaliation carried another cost: innocence. Alien families who had nothing to do with the healer attacks found themselves trapped in the fire. Entire cities burned when the Forgotten Ones struck. Children were lost. Farmers, workers, traders, all caught in the storm. Humanity's name began to change. Where once they were healers, now they were whispers in the dark. The president received message after message from alien leaders begging for talks. But every time she raised the matter, the generals around her shook their heads. "If we stop now," they said, "the galaxy will only strike again. We must finish this." She closed her eyes, remembering the healers who had once stood with pride, carrying no weapons. They had died for mercy, and now their deaths had become the excuse for something merciless. The galaxy trembled. The price of vengeance was being paid in fire. In one hidden chamber of the Galactic Council, an alien strategist spoke the words no one wanted to hear. If humanity does not stop, we must unite against them, all of us, every fleet, every army, or they will burn us all. But even as he spoke, fear silenced the room. No one wanted to be the first to fight them. No one wanted to face the forgotten ones in battle. And so, the galaxy watched, helpless, as humanity's shadows spread. For Earth, vengeance had become survival. For the galaxy, survival had become fear. And in the silence between battles, everyone wondered the same thing. How long could the monsters remain under control? Because monsters, once unleashed, were never easy to cage again. The galaxy was no longer laughing. Where once alien fleets had mocked Earth's grief, now they feared to even whisper the human name. The retaliation had turned into a storm, and the storm was only growing. The forgotten ones were no longer shadows. They were legends reborn. Their names spread across worlds like fire. Vera Kane, the commander who erased fleets with a glance. Yoren Haley, the wolf, who hunted generals in their sleep. Others too, snipers, spies, captains, executioners, each one carried vengeance in their veins. And the galaxy trembled with every step they took. But vengeance came with a weight. On Earth, the president stood at the window of her chamber, watching the blue oceans below. Reports stacked on her desk, alien cities gone, colonies erased, entire species begging for mercy. She pressed her hands against the glass and whispered, "We set them free. But can we ever cage them again?" Her advisors urged her to stay the course. "If we stop now," one general said, "the galaxy will think we are weak again. They must believe we will go all the way." But another voice, quieter, spoke from the back of the room. It was an old ambassador, her hair white, her eyes heavy. "Madam President, the galaxy already trembles. But so does Earth. When the healers died, we lost light. If we keep this path, we may never see it again." The president gave no answer, for she knew the truth. The chains had been broken, and chains are never easy to rebuild. Meanwhile, in the outer reaches of space, the forgotten ones prepared their final strike. The alien empire that had first ordered the healer attacks still stood, its homeworld guarded by a wall of ships stretching across the stars. Billions of lives rested behind those defenses, convinced no army could pass. But the forgotten ones were not an army. They were something worse. Commander Vera Kane looked at the defense wall and raised her hand. "Break them," she said. Her fleet moved like knives in the dark. Silent weapons cut through shields. Enemy ships exploded before they even understood they were under attack. Panic rippled through the alien ranks. Commanders screamed orders, but their soldiers fled. For every ship that resisted, 5 vanished in fire. Then Yoren Haley came. Alone, he slipped through defenses, his ship black against the stars. He landed on the alien homeworld itself, walking into the capital city without disguise, without fear. The people ran as he passed, his shadow burning against the walls. He left no speeches, no promises, only silence and destruction. By dawn, the Empire's leaders were gone, their fleets shattered, their worlds kneeling. And carved into the ruins of their council hall were 3 words burned deep into the stone: "For the healers." The galaxy trembled. It was not just the destruction, it was the knowledge. Humanity had shown a side of itself no one dared imagine. They were not only healers, not only builders, not only dreamers. They were vengeance given form. And vengeance once shown could never be forgotten. Allies whispered among themselves. Could humanity ever be trusted again? Could a species that unleashed such monsters ever return to peace? Some swore to never cross Earth again. Others plotted in silence, knowing that if the humans ever turned on them, no defense would be enough. And yet, even as fear spread, a strange respect grew too. For the galaxy understood something new. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was the storm. and the storm always answered when touched. When the fighting was done, the forgotten ones vanished back into the shadows. Their fleets disappeared into hidden bases. Their names returned to whispers. Earth locked their records again, erasing them from public view. But every alien knew the truth. If the healers were ever struck again, the monsters would return. In the quiet of Earth's night, the president stood alone. She remembered the healers, gentle men and women who had carried medicine across the stars, who had believed that compassion was stronger than fire. They had died believing in peace, and now peace itself felt farther than ever. She whispered into the darkness, "Forgive us. We could not protect you with love, so we protected you with fear." And across the stars, the galaxy remembered. They remembered the white ships of the healers. They remembered the black ships of the forgotten ones. And they remembered how, when the healers fell, the stars themselves trembled in answer, because the price of touching humanity's mercy had been paid in blood. And the echo of that price would never fade.